Over the past 10 years, working with people with memory issues, this is by far the number one nutrient deficiency that contributes to memory loss. Now, I've run thousands of tests over the years, and what I've seen deficient with my patients, now there's several of them. And so I'm going to lead up to it because there are several other ones that I do want to talk about. And so I'm going to talk about the 5 leading up to number 1. So the 5th one has to do with the myelin sheath. Now, the myelin sheath is what surrounds our nerve fibers, which provides communication between our neurons. So that does help with memory recall over time. And one of the very important vitamins that helps with this is vitamin B12. In fact, there's been a lot of research around that vitamin B12 is the number 1 when it comes to memory loss. But from my experience, it's only about 20% of the issue when I'm testing my patients specifically, but it's still a big factor. Another reason why vitamin B12 deficiency impacts memory loss is because of homocysteine. Now, homocysteine is an amino acid, but if it accumulates too much, it can cause inflammation, oxidative stress, causing damages to the cells, which negatively impacts the brain. And therefore, so if vitamin B12 levels are low, it's not converting homocysteine into methionine. So then this accumulation can increase and causing that damage, which then, of course, over time impairs memory. Now, the 4th common nutrient deficiency when it comes to memory loss is vitamin D3. In fact, about 29% of people that I've tested over the years severely deficient in vitamin D3 levels. Now, why vitamin D3 is so important is because it is vital for building and modulating very specific neurotransmitters that helps with memory recall. Also, when vitamin D levels are deficient, it does increase inflammatory cytokines in the brain, which then triggers neuroinflammation to the brain, which then damages the brain, which then, of course, damages things like the hippocampus that has a lot to do with memory recall. So therefore, it's really important to keep your vitamin D levels sufficient. But also, vitamin D is very important for nerve growth factors and stimulates brain-derived neurotrophic factors, which support neural growth. And so when these are impaired over time, it's not producing enough neuroplasticity, which then is going to impair certain cells in the brain, especially the hippocampus area that is responsible for memory, is going to also have issues down the road. Now, the 3rd and 2nd most common ones that I see, this has to do with adults that are about 40 and above. I see this, and especially a great marker to check for, especially for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And so when I test this with my patients that are 40 and above, I see about 30+% are going to be deficient in both choline and also serine. Now, both of these have very similar properties, and one of the important factors that has to do with memory recall, especially choline, makes acetylcholine, which acetylcholine is an important neurotransmitter for messaging and signaling in the brain. Like if you don't have acetylcholine, it's very hard for the brain to communicate and have proper communication, especially for memory and cognition. The other important factor for both choline and also serine is the brain is built on lots of different tiny cells, especially the wall of the brain that keep these cells strong and healthy. And both choline and serine help with these wall structures, especially the different neuron cells. And so if there's not enough serine and choline, these structures start to deteriorate and therefore can contribute to deterioration of certain parts of the brain, especially like the hippocampus, that contribute to memory. And so therefore, this is when we start seeing short-term and long-term memory issues happening. Now, as you can see, when it comes to memory issues, you really need to understand what are you specifically deficient in? How can you catch this early on? You need to do some lab testing to see, okay, what am I deficient in? So you should download my lab protocol that I use with all my patients and clients, a list of all the different labs that will help you catch these early signs of not just memory issues, but other things that are contributing to your brain to prevent from any costly things happening down the road. So download that in the description below. Now, the number 1 deficiency when it comes to memory loss that I've tested over the years is vitamin B6. In fact, about 50 to 60% of my patients that I test are deficient in this. Now, there's 3 main reasons of why this contributes to memory issues. Is that vitamin B6 is so important for pretty much every single different neurotransmitter to building and modulating it. Things like dopamine, serotonin, GABA. If vitamin B6 is deficient, it's hard to make enough dopamine, serotonin, GABA, which then contributes to memory issues. And the second thing is vitamin B6, just like vitamin B12, is controlling the utilization of homocysteine to making sure that homocysteine levels don't raise too high to cause vascular damage, as well as oxidative stress to the brain, and therefore impacting memory in the long term because it's impacting the brain. But the third thing when it comes to vitamin B6, and a lot of people overlook this, is vitamin B6 helps the brain cells make energy. Mitochondria is responsible for generating energy for all our cells. And so if vitamin B6 levels are low, then energy production for cells, especially cells for the brain, are going to diminish. And so if brain cells are not getting enough energy, then it starts to deteriorate more. And so it's harder for those parts of the brain to function, especially the important area for memory, which would be the hippocampus. Now, if you're having other symptoms other than memory issues, but maybe having some focus issues or brain fog or being inattentive, maybe you might have some ADHD issues. You should watch this video next where I talk about basically 90% of people that deal with focus or ADHD symptoms have this issue. So watch this video next.